Hey. Welcome to episode 107 of Awkwardly Awesome Podcast. Yes, Awkwardly Awesome Podcast is 107 today. And today I'm talking to an amazing person who I just met recently, and we're talking in life. He's made some amazing career changes, and I'm just so inspired because so often it's easier for us as humans to resist change and to mourn the past, or else or else one thing will find one thing that works reasonably well in our lives and just cling to it and cling to it and cling to it. So, and my guest hasn't done that at all. So I'm excited to introduce you, but first the intro.
Today's guest,
Douglas Helkenn.
Welcome back to Awkwardly Awesome Podcast. I'm still your host, Jason Freeman, and I still have a totally unique, one of a kind voice, which I love. So let me tell you about Douglas. I recently met Douglas at a birthday party. First, I was struck by his incredible sense of humor, just so great. Next, I learned that mid-career he decided to make a career switch, and not just a small one. Check this out. For many years, he had enjoyed all aspects of being an interior designer. Then he decided to go back to school and get his elementary education teacher certification. Talk about redecorating your career and taking on fresh challenges. See what I did there with redecorating and interior design. I thought it was clever. I got a kick out of it. Get this, he became a fifth grade math teacher in Key West, of all places. Then I learned he grew up in the small town of Clark, South Dakota, population a hefty 1,148. Needless to say, Clark is very far from southern Florida. Please help me welcome Douglas. Hey, Douglas.
Hey,
Welcome to
Jason.
the show.
Thank you for having me. That's a big build-up, man. That is a big build-up. I don't think I'm quite ready to meet the expectations of what you just set, but thank you for it. I do appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for being here. So when you were 7 years old, did you ever think you would be a fifth grade math teacher in Key West?
Um, I didn't. I can honestly tell you, I didn't know that Key West, Florida existed when I was that age. I didn't. I probably was unaware that Florida was even a state at that age. But I have always loved education, and throughout the totality of my life, I'm always doing some form of education. So maybe in the back of my head, I wanted to be one, but I just didn't know the path to take. No, I had no idea when I was young.
So if I had asked you, cute little Douglas, when you were 7, what you wanted to be when you grew up, what would you have said?
I was very much obsessed with firefighting, firemen, that type of thing. It still holds today. I still like a good fireman. But I got to be, I think that was driven because I had a great Halloween costume one year and I got to ride on the fire truck in a parade. And so I think that was a big driver on that little thought process of being a fireman.
That must have been so exciting to have your costume and get to be in the parade.
It was, um, being from a small town, and I will mention it was about 1,800 people when I lived there when dinosaurs roamed the earth. But it was a parade is a really big deal in a small town, and it still is to this day. People turn out for parades, and when you had a parade, everybody showed up. Everybody showed up, and so it was a big deal to be on the fire truck for sure.
So is the parade and clock part of some summer festival or is it a holiday parade?
That happened to be a homecoming parade. They used to do, and they still do, homecoming parades where the freshman, junior, senior, sophomore classes would decorate a flatbed. There would be a theme, and then each grade would dress as a theme, and they would all be part of that parade. It was a really great time.
So you were in the parade all 4 years of high school?
No, I think I was in that parade from kindergarten through high school.
Oh, so that parade was a big part of your life.
It was. And so, like, when I graduated from high school in my little town of Clark, South Dakota, I graduated with 42 people. 42 people. Of
And
those 42 people, I probably started kindergarten with 25 of them.
wow.
It's I'm going to tell you, there's no better way to grow up. No better way to grow up. It was
So
fantastic.
so when you say there's no better way to grow up than in a small town, what do you mean by that?
So again, this was a long time ago, but we used to get turned out about 8 o'clock in the morning, and then we ran and did whatever we wanted to do until the noon whistle ran. And then when the noon whistle went off, everybody went home, had lunch. Then we got all turned out again, and then we came home at the 6 o'clock whistle. And our parents didn't know really what we were doing or what hijinks we were up to, but it was also a great time of exploration and figuring stuff out and working with your friends, having confrontation, figuring that out, talking to people. It was an idyllic way to start a life, and I'm sad that kids don't get that opportunity anymore. And the other thing that I'm sad about is I was lucky enough to grow up in a generation without cell phones or tablets or computers. So I had to use my imagination to create all the fun I wanted to have. And that was a great way to grow up.
So a few questions from this. First, are you telling me that Clark, South Dakota had a noon whistle and then
6 o'clock still does.
when you say a whistle, what do you mean?
So it was part of back in the 60s and 50s, I think 60s, early warning system. And so they tested it every noon and every 6 o'clock so that they made sure it worked. So if a tornado or severe storm came, they would blast it and everyone would know to take cover. If that whistle goes off any other time besides noon or six, you barrel to the basement.
So what if the noon whistle is going off and you think it's just a noon whistle, but there's also a tornado?
Well, you can look up in the sky and see it's the noon whistle or it's a tornado.
Okay, awesome. And then so we're going to jump around a little bit because I mean all life doesn't go linear,
Linearly.
linearly. Okay, say that word again.
It's not a straight line. How about that?
Life doesn't go in a straight line in our
Exactly.
heads. And
Yes.
so,
No.
so jumping ahead to what do you know? You just mentioned um phones and tablets. What do you notice in your fifth grade math class? What was
Um,
the experience for the students like having so much technology?
so technology is for students both good and bad. In my humble estimation, there are geniuses who write about this stuff all the time, who document it and review case study work. I can only tell you what my experience was in my classroom and what happened over the pandemic, because that's a big situation going on right now. And I just read in the New York Times the education report that came out from the big test that came out last year is everyone took a 20% dive in math and reading.
That's
Part
a
of that
20%.
20. That hasn't been that low. These scores haven't been this low since the mid 90s, early 90s. So part of that had to do with the whole problem with the pandemic and how it was sort of handled, because nobody knew how to handle it. There was no playbook anybody could have pulled out on how to handle this around education. So, we did what we thought was best and we leaned on technology so that we could do what you and I are doing, have virtual classes. Well, what we did is we taught those kids to be on their computers for 7 hours a day. And then we asked them to do follow up work on the computer. And now we're asking them to have phones as early as fourth and fifth grade because parents want to be able to get in touch with their kids. And I understand that that's an important piece of the puzzle. But those devices all do other things
Hmm.
than contact and education. The problem with our situation, I think, is once those kids take the computers off the school network and load them up into their at home networks, there's no precautions anymore. We have precautions on our network and school that kids can't go to certain websites, but if the parents are not shutting it down or not monitoring it, then they're able to go to whatever they want to. And when you're in fourth or fifth grade, that drive, think about how precocious you were in fourth and fifth grade. You just wanted to look up, source out any fun
Oh,
things. And along with some of those
oh my
things come, unfortunately, bad things. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't reverse it or go backwards, but we need to take a hot pause, I think, on technology and let kids be kids. There's this great initiative out there that we participated in at my charter school in Key West called the Global Day of Play. And
the
it happens,
global day of play.
yes. So the only thing kids do on that day is play. No technology, no teaching, nothing. So
Huh.
you tell your kids, bring your blankets, bring your board games, bring your drawings, bring your crayons, your Legos, bring whatever you want to do to play, or bring books to read with each other, or whatever. So they would rip apart my classroom. They would set up forts under tables. They would create racetracks out of Legos. They would draw. They would mark up my whiteboards, having a great time. And that's all we did for the whole day is let kids be kids.
Mm,
Because so much of the time, nobody gets to just play. Like what I was
mm,
saying about, we got turned out in the morning and didn't expect to be home until noon. Well, what were we doing? We were discovering, we were working on problems within our culture of kids we were running around with. We were using our imagination. We were doing incredible things that looked probably stupid from afar. But I'm going to tell you, laying in the grass and looking at clouds can be a great exercise, and you're using your imagination. And we
mm.
don't let kids do that as much anymore. And I feel sad about that because I know, the biggest day for my brother and I was if somebody got a new stove or refrigerator and we could steal the box. And then we would take that box home and we would turn it into a great fort. We'd cut out windows, we'd cut
Uh,
out doors. That was a big day, right? A box. Now kids need 17 apps on their phone so they can play games or play Xbox or whatever. And that's, I feel, is not a great way for kids to flick up the old gray matter, for me anyway.
Hey, Debbie, thanks for being on, and good to see you have a great podcast. And I was so glad to be on it. And Angela agrees. She says kids need to use their imagination more.
100%. Because I also think when you allow kids to use their imagination, if you think about the imagination of Steve Jobs, think about the incredible imagination he had to have in order to create what he created.
Gosh, I just get goosebumps because I'm talking to you on a MacBook computer, and that wouldn't be possible without Steve's imagination.
Right. And I think the other part of what technology does is it creates those children to be inside creatures. And they
Mm,
need to be outside and they need to be in fresh air and they need to go on those field trips, which get cut in funding, and they need to participate in outdoor activities. And listen, not everybody is a soccer kid, not everybody is a baseball kid. I understand that. But there's other things they can do. They can sit outside under a tree and read. They can sit outside at a picnic table and draw. They can do things outside so they can see what a gorgeous world we live in if we just give them a
mm.
chance.
Th- Thinking back to you talking about growing up in Clark and just listening for the two whistles and having all this freedom versus kids today have all this freedom to search the web, but Clark, South Dakota, you had a freedom, but you were also safe
Well,
within the small town versus
that's
kids
a great.
today can go anywhere on the web.
Oh, I had the internet back then. Don't forget about it because the internet was if somebody's mom or grandma say you're doing something stupid on the other side of town, the phone started lighting up, and by the time you got home, oh my gosh, how'd she find out? It didn't take a minute. That phone tree worked like a business. But the deal on that is everybody in a small town looks out for each other, typically.
Mm,
And that was the great thing about the internet that we had is, there were many times when we had people over for dinner, kids over for dinner because there was a problem at home. You didn't ask, you just come on over, let's have dinner. You just did. And
mm,
that's the other thing that I feel so blessed about growing up in a little town. And I know a
mm.
lot of kids can't run crazy like we did. I get that. And that's why I feel sorry for kids growing up. But there are many opportunities that they can participate, certainly in their towns, that can give them that same freedom. But it's also, and I don't want to box parents in, but parents have to create those opportunities for their kids. Parents have to create those opportunities for their kids to do things outside. And I know we get in such a, I got to get up, I got to go to work, I got to drop my kid off, I got to come home, I got to make dinner, I got to do laundry. That's a hard thing to do. But geez, I spent a lot of time doing laundry with my grandma when I was little. That I'm
Mm,
so glad we spent that time together because I
mm,
learned, how to measure when we would do bake. We baked every Wednesday.
mm,
um, we baked all the bread and stuff for the whole week. We did that every Wednesday. I learned how to measure. I learned what fractions were while I was measuring. There's a lot of opportunity that you can do along with those things to help your kids' imagination spark.
So Angela's on the same wavelength as you. She says ride bikes, swing, play in water, etc.
Exactly.
And all that stuff sounds so fun.
It is fun.
You make such a great point, like that parents don't have to entertain their kids 24/7 to be with them and have meaningful time. Like your grandma involved you in doing stuff, like doing wash, baking,
she
accomplishing things that meant something to her.
she was fantastic at the manipulation, because what she did is she made vacuuming a fun game, and so I love.
How?
I don't know how she did it, because we had, back in the day, we had shag carpet, right? So we got to make patterns in the shag carpet with the vacuum, which we would then turn into rivers or cut out little towns. I still love the vacuum to this day because of her. But I thought, good on you, Grandma. Good on you. I did all your housework for you while I was playing. Good for you.
That's awesome. So 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 what did you try to impart to the students in your fifth grade class?
So a lot of times
That's a
when,
broad question.
well, no, it is, but to follow the same sort of thing of imagination, um, there are tons of math products on Chromebooks that can help kids really do well on their math skills. But being an old fashioned person like I am, I find there's nothing more satisfying than a clean sheet of paper and a number two pencil that's just been sharpened with a big eraser on the top.
Mm,
Because kids working out problems on paper or drawing out problems on paper, like when we have three holes and we're dividing the three holes into two to find different ways to solve problems, it's very fun to draw those types of situations out. So that's one of the things I tried to bring to the kids is we don't need to practice on the computer. We need to practice on paper, or we need to practice doing it in our head, visualizing what the numbers look like. And the
mm.
one thing that I found that was, I know that it gets a lot of bad rap, I guess, is new math on, you used to do 10 times 3 and get 30. Well, now you can do 10 times 3 and 0 times 3, and you understand that that's still 30. It's three groups of 10. So it works differently on how you used to do that. It's a very interesting thought process, because here's the other thing that we know: no child learns the same way
Mm,
as their friend next door. Now, for
mm.
kids who can easily memorize multiplication tables, great. Kids who have trouble understanding place value, understanding that in 123, the 2 is value is worth 20, that isn't as easy. So it takes them a little bit longer. And so there are other methods in order to help kids get math differently. Still come up to the same answer, but there are different roads we can travel to get there.
When you insisted on them using a pencil and paper, were the kids resistant at all? Did they say let's use Chromebooks? Or
No, well, that's so fun, Jason. Like, you thought they had an option in my classroom. No, there was no option. They just had to do what Mr. Helkenn wanted them to do.
I guess as a teacher, you don't take surveys and.
No, no. There are no, are you kidding? If you took a survey in fifth grade, geez, you'd be there all day. You wouldn't get anything done. And I'm talking about the state of Florida. They have a pretty heavy curriculum, and so there's a lot of stuff you got to get covered through day one to the last day, and so you got to keep them moving, keep them going, keep them moving, keep them going, because otherwise you fall behind, and then that just puts them behind for the following year or for the next year.
And as you just said, you're not only keeping kids going on one way of learning, you're trying to adjust to how every kid learns.
Well, and that for my charter school, we had a 90-minute math block, which is great.
Wow.
You can't do math in 60 minutes. But I want you to think
Wow.
about how this class is set up, Jason. And you probably haven't been to elementary school in a while, so I'll refresh your memory. So we always start every morning when they come in with a warm up. I always did two warm ups. It usually was a warm up on whatever we covered, a problem on something we covered the previous day, and then a look forward warm up on something we might be working on in the next couple days or weeks so that they could get their mind ready for learning. Then we would,
What's a warm up?
it might be something like, Bob is packing baseballs. There are 32 baseballs in each box. He's sending 6 boxes. How many baseballs did he ship? Word problems, typically, word problems. So it just gets them thinking about, oh, what do I need to do? Is this a multiplication? Is it division? Is it adding? Is it subtracting? And then when we get the warm up done, we move into the lesson. And from the lesson, then we usually break out and do our assigned projects. From there,
Projects in a math class? What
oh, lots of projects in math class. Lots of
projects?
projects. Yeah.
Like
Think about it.
what?
Think about my previous career as an interior designer. This is the thing that people don't understand about interior design. Everything about interior design is math. It's not about color. It's not about pattern. It's about math. You
What?
need to calculate gross margin on what you're selling. You need to figure out yardage for carpet, square footage for tile. You need to calculate prices, and you need to calculate everything that goes on in a house is math, especially like when you're measuring a sofa to make sure it fits on the wall. That's calculating up inches and feet. It all relates to math. So one of the
Oh,
projects that I would have them do, for example, is at the end of the year we did a dream room project. So the dream room project was
fun.
I gave them little layouts with a room. I showed them where the doors were and where the windows were. And then they had to figure out how much wood flooring they needed for there. So they have to go shop wood flooring. I gave them access to the Home Depot website. They could find out, because flooring comes in 26.25 square feet per carton. So they had to calculate
I
this.
didn't know that,
Yeah.
actually. I did
Well,
not know that.
it comes in all different dimensions. So that's the fun thing about it. But then they had to figure out how many square feet they had on their floor. Then they had to buy enough in order to cover their floor. They had to figure out how many gallons of paint because they needed to find out how many square feet a gallon of paint covers and to figure out how many gallons of paint they needed to buy. Then I gave them a budget of, I think, like $5,000 to purchase. Minimum, they had to purchase a bed, a nightstand, and an area rug or something like that. I can't remember right now. But then anything else they could buy on their own. So the goal was to get as close to $5,000 without going over and meet all the criteria. But that is a math that's nothing but math because it's working on decimals, it's working on dividing decimals, multiplying, adding, subtracting. It's working on square footage, linear, perimeter. It's working on everything that we work on in 5th grade.
So wait, Douglas, you're really messing with my mind right now. Like, like you just gave you just mentioned giving your students a project involving math, which sounds not only fun, but very practical in that they could use in their future lives. What?
I know, right? Shocking. Well, the thing about the junior, that's one of their favorite. It's the end of the year project because we got to wait to the end of the year to do it. It's one of their favorite projects because they get to show their own personal flair or style. Now, there are a lot of people who the first thing they purchase is a huge television because they just want to game all day, and that's okay. They paint their walls black, they buy black flooring, you know, that's
No
okay.
way.
Yes, because they want it to be like they're in the video, and that's okay. I love it.
Wow.
Good for you. There are, of
Wow.
course, other things where it's all kittens. Everything has a kitty on it. I love that too. I think that's great. But it shows me their creative side as well on what they're doing. The other project that they really like to do is when we work on the coordinated grid, which is working on like a map, if you will, the x-axis and the y-axis, they get to create their own town and lay it
No
out
way.
on their x-axis. They have to come up with a theme for their town, a name for their town, and 10 um, businesses or something in their town. So I had this sweet little girl. She was obsessed with turtles and peacocks. So hers was Peacock and Turtleville. Oh my God, it was hilarious. It was so well done. I loved it. It was great. But that helps them understand how to work on a coordinated grid. So we're sneaking math in there. They're having fun, but they're also learning math.
Is this how is math taught this way now in general in terms of from projects or is this something you created?
No, there are projects. There are always a math project out there to do. There's always a math project out there to do, and I know tons of people who do them. But the point is, you have to be able to help them get to a certain point where they can do this project. And so, one other thing I just wanted to step back a piece and talk to you about is when you have a math class for 90 minutes, and not everybody is learning at the same rate.
Hmm.
So typically after the lesson, we'll break out, and then I would take my kids who might have a little need for additional instruction. I'd go work with them. Some kids who even have even more of a need for instruction, they might go out and work with someone else. So there's constant movement, balls in the air, things happening. You know, you're kind of commanding a three-ring circus at all times, which is fine and dandy, as long as you have the support staff to help you do that. That is the key, is that now in schools, we need more support staff more than ever, as well as counselors, because the pandemic has really messed things up.
Hmm. So I want to get into that too, but first, what did your students ever want to have side conversations with each other and
Oh,
talk
yeah.
about?
Yes.
Did that happen even one time?
Oh, no, that happens all the time. Are you kidding me? Fifth graders can't shut up. That's part of being a fifth grader. They're just
So
excited
so
about
so,
everything.
so how do you handle that energy when kids will want to be talking about all kinds of stuff?
Well, that's why you have to make sure that, okay, we're going to learn, then we're going to get this work done, and then we can do something fun. So they have something to look forward to. Because a lot of kids, this is the problem. Well, not the problem. This is one of the things that has to be talked about more in education. Is a lot of times school is the only outlet that kid has for friends or support,
Hmm.
because the parents may not be involved with the kid, or the kid is in a situation where it's just not a great childhood, like I
Hmm.
had. I think about this mother who is a single mom working very hard to meet the needs for she and her son, a fifth grade boy, but she was a night auditor at a company down in Key West.
Hmm.
She would pick him up from school, feed him supper, and then she would go to work. And she didn't come
Hmm.
home until the next morning, where she would make sure he was up and ready to go and drop him off at school. So that
Hmm.
fifth grader was home alone all night long.
Hmm. God,
Now, that's
be
not
tough.
a great situation, but I know she had people in her housing complex who was keeping an eye. He was a super mature kid, kind of had to be, but this is what she had to do. So at school, he wanted to have some fun because he was not having fun at home at night because he was
Hmm.
scared, I imagine. So, we had to work that out and figure out that. But until I got to know him and talk to him to understand what was going on at home, he got a little crazy. But I'm going to tell you, he ended up the end of the year with a great grade because he got himself figured out, I guess. We figured it out together. But those types of situations happen frequently. And that's some of the things that people don't really discuss. You know, kids, sometimes we're the kids' um, parent figure, sometimes we're the kids' medical provider, we're the kids' food provider, we're the kids' social mental health provider, we're the kids' teacher, we're the student's friend. That's a lot to put on a not so great paying job.
How, as a teacher, how do you deal with that? That's not only a lot of responsibility, like a fireman
Yeah.
having to fight a fire, but it's a lot of responsibility in so many different areas. You're planning the lesson. You're doing this for one kid. You're helping one kid with another thing. How as a teacher do you handle responsibility in so many directions?
Well, like I told you at the beginning, when I was voluntold frequently, I can just get stuff done. But it also is upsetting and it breaks your heart a lot of times knowing what a beautiful kid this child is, and they're just not getting the support from the home life. And in some of those times, my first year, I had to call DCF because of a situation, and that was horrible. That was
DCF is what?
Department of Children and Family Services.
Hmm.
Yeah, and that's a horrible situation because you want to pick up that kid and take him home, but of course you can't do that because your house would be overrun with children then. It's not easy. It's not easy, but that's why you got to show up every day to go and be the support person for them and be the person that they need today. We can't change what happens today, can't think about tomorrow. We can only get through today and do the best thing we can for them.
Speaking of showing up, my friend Tim Sones on, and he has a podcast with a co-host called "Showing Up: Perspectives on Cancer." Talk
Oh,
about having to show up, and then he's doing a live event. He's awesome. So proud of you, Tim. So proud of you. Um. So, and speaking of showing up, Douglas, so you had this career as an interior designer. You know the lay of the land. You're working with adults. You know it. It's your profession. What made you think, like, even though you thought, oh, as a kid that you wanted to teach, what made you think I'm going to take a leap into a very challenging profession that doesn't pay very well, unfortunately? What inspired you to do that?
So one of the things that I think is important as a person of this country is to volunteer, not just being voluntold, but to volunteer and give back time to the community you live in. So
Would you say briefly talk about your phrase voluntold?
that's when your boss tells you you're going to work on this committee and you don't get an option. You're like, okay, I guess I will. I was just voluntold to do it.
Cool. So back to what you were saying.
So I've always participated in organizations. Like when I was in Sioux Falls, I was in junior achievement. I was in teaching first graders about their community on how money works in their community. I also, of course, worked on the arts board with our director, Sheila Agee, at the time.
Mhm.
And then when I moved to Key West, I got involved with Rotary International and then eventually the United Way. The United Way was a tremendous understanding of really what the needs are for the disadvantaged members of our society in the Florida Keys. And that the thing that makes me the saddest is when you're trying to get funding to feed children. That just makes me sad.
Mm.
So I knew after doing interior design for 25 years, I needed to take a step back, excuse me, and do something that would hopefully be beneficial to others. Sorry.
It was good timing because you left me in us in suspense. To take a step, I needed to take a step back and do something beneficial to others, and then you've had this dramatic cough. It was just great timing.
I don't know about that. Sorry.
I mean, it doesn't sound like fun timing for you, but oh,
No, that wasn't great, was it? Thank you.
it was actually dramatic. I thought it was good.
Wow, that was nice. Sorry, it's yeah, allergies. Sorry about that.
Uh,
So I needed to do something that would mean something to other people, which teaching is a tough profession.
hmm.
I could financially afford to do it. And a friend of mine was the principal at the charter school. So I told her what I was thinking about, and she said, I'll help you. And so luckily, she really helped direct me and get that figured out and what I needed to do.
So you went to teaching school in Key West?
Yes, I started doing the fifth grade math. I was able to start with a woman who was going to be leaving on maternity leave. So I kind of could get a introduction into classroom. And then when she left, I was on my own. And so that was a great way to do it. And she was a phenomenal teacher. Oof, so great. And if I ever had a question, I could call her and she would help me out in a minute.
But when did you get your teaching certificate?
I I was doing it um, leading up to starting. The first thing you have to do is you have to sit for a series of tests in Florida. I don't know about South Dakota. And I was lucky enough to pass two of them right off the bat. And so then I had to just take two of them to get my temporary. And then I had to, while I was working with my temporary, then I had to take two more professional assessments.
Oh,
And, and then go back to school. So, jeez, Jason, I'm sorry.
you're trying to compete with my speech impediment right now, Doug.
Oh, sinus issues. Ugh.
So
So then I had to, then while I was teaching, I was taking classes to get my professional certification. Because you can have a temporary, temporary for 2 years.
so so you if you need to get more liquid, can definitely go out do a song and dance
I'm okay now.
with
There
my
we go.
hand
Yeah.
dancing.
I'm so sorry about that. That just caught me by surprise.
So the life happens. So what would you say to someone? I think a lot of people, including me at times. I mean, we go that our life is so busy. We 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 don't have time to volunteer. What would you say in terms of advocating for the joy of volunteering? I guess.
Well, I think it's important for your heart and soul to be a volunteer, to spread goodness and joy. That's
Mm,
that's what this country so desperately needs.
mm,
And back to the
mm,
point where I talked about the grandmother internet in my hometown of Clark. They were looking out for each other. It wasn't a volunteer thing, but they took on that responsibility of watching out for other people. Well, that's what volunteering is. It's helping to watch out for other people. And that's
That's
just
what
something.
volunteering is, helping to watch out for other people. That's
Exactly. And whether you're volunteering to help sell Christmas trees or volunteering to go read a book at a nursing home, it doesn't have to be 20 hours a week. It could be 1 hour a week. And couldn't we all just put down our phones for 1 hour and do
mm.
something good for mankind? Yeah, we can. We can do that.
What would you say to someone who says, I hear you, Douglas, and that's logical, but the problems in the world are so here are so massive. Will my doing something for 1 hour even matter in the grand scheme of things? What
Oh,
would
geez.
you say to that person?
Well, I believe in karma. And I think karma can be a bitch if you don't up your karmic score. So that's why I always think when I am old, would I want someone to come read to me? And if I couldn't read, yes. If I was
Mm,
hungry, would I want somebody to come bag lunches? Yes. If I was that person, I've been fortunate in my life where I haven't needed to be that way. But if I was not that person and I needed help, who can I rely on except my fellow man? And honestly, Jason, a conversation like what we're having today, or a conversation with a kid helping them with their math homework, or a conversation with somebody old whose family doesn't visit them,
Hmm.
that puts good out into the world that
Hmm.
will come back to us. And we have to start thinking of others besides ourselves. We should always do something for others besides ourselves. And we get into a very um, tough world where we're very me centered, me. I've got to do
Hmm.
this. I've got to do this. And I always think we should think we instead of I. And I've had this great conversation with a very good friend of mine. If we can't, as two people, sit down and talk and discuss things that are uncomfortable to both of us, what shot do we have on fixing a lot of the problems in our
Hmm.
society or in our world? Because we've got to be able to have conversations. But if we're just this the whole time, we can't talk. If we're in our phones all the time, we can't talk.
Hmm.
And so, even if you're talking to an old person, maybe that old person will bring new light onto something you had never thought about. Or I'm going to tell you, I've learned a great deal from children, a great deal from children just listening to them. And it's a
Oh,
beautiful thing.
this is so wonderful. What are a few things you've learned from your students?
Well, a lot of times children will redirect your thought process when they will you'll be all up in your head, like I told you, I've got to get this done, get this done, get this done. And they'll just say something so off the cuff and you're going like, "Oh yeah, let's just have a moment, right? Let's just all take a moment and think about what we're doing as opposed to bam, bam, bam." And that's a powerful thing, out of the mouths of babes. They teach you what you already know, but yet you get in your head so much. And
Hmm.
then you realize, oh, yeah, we just need to have a moment.
So that your students helped you to be present.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And when I had a carpet and I would sit on the floor with them and we would have whiteboards and we'd work on things, and especially for kids who struggled. And when it finally clicks on their face and they finally understand, oh, there's nothing better. There's
Hmm.
nothing better.
Because you're not only teaching them the particular skill, you, you're, you're teaching them that eh, with patience and effort, they can learn tough things, which
Yes.
is what a huge gift for the rest of their life.
Well, that's the thing um, that we talk a lot about in fifth grade math is perseverance and
Mm,
problem solving, because it's easy to just say, I can't get it, I give up. Well, no,
mm,
we have to be able to persevere and say, okay, I tried this way. Should I try a different way? Let me read the question again. Let me rethink about how I was doing it before. What am I missing? All of those types of problem solving skills and perseverance will follow them for the rest of their lives. And that's the big key takeaway for a lot of the teaching that goes on, is they have to understand how to work out a problem and keep going even when things get hard.
mm. What a not only a metaphor, but teaching core life skills, because life, even a great life, is full of problems to to solve. To
I completely agree, Jason. I mean, I feel very blessed with my life and how things have worked. But every day you have to figure out how to do the next thing, or how to
mm,
start the next thing, or what to do. And it's like when I decided to become a teacher, I didn't understand all the problems that were going to be in front of me when I decided to do it. And I didn't realize all the work that came absolutely with it. And that was a fantastic thing to learn and understand. And then you're like, oh, got it. Okay. How can I do it? What do I need to do? How can I work through it? And that's a getting back in the saddle in college. I went to college. We didn't have computers. We wrote everything out longhand, or we typed our papers. We wrote it out in cursive. Remember cursive, everyone? Nobody knows cursive. And those were the things, like when I went back as a new student at the ripe old age of 55, was understanding, oh, wow, look at all the things you do know in college. Oh, wow, look at all the things you can do with technology. So that was a that was a problem solving and a perseverance thing right off the bat.
Just a few more quick questions before we. Gosh, I could talk to you for a long time, but just a few more quick questions. Teachers is a coach to me that teachers are only underpaid for all the stuff they do, but oftentimes parents probably only think of interacting with teachers when there's a problem,
Agreed.
rather than appreciating, like, wow, this teacher is teaching my kid how to exist and thrive in life.
Oh,
This is amazing.
we were very fortunate where our parents were very vocal when something went well, right? And so they were appreciative, and you could tell it. And they would also, if something goes wrong, they want to know that too. But the the takeaway that I would give any parent who's got a kid in elementary school is the work they're doing in second and third grade is so important on their development for the rest of their school year, like through 12th. It's so important. So just don't send them to school thinking, oh, they're learning the ABCs. No, they're learning how to start reading. They're learning how to start counting and math. And those little brains are such sponges. This
Hmm.
is where you want to get them. And this is where you want to get them from the get go so that they don't struggle later on.
Hmm.
Because a lot of times, parents at second grade, what are they learning? A lot. They're learning a lot. And they're also learning a lot in kindergarten and first. But, when they start hitting second grade and they're really doing some of those word association things and understanding numbers and that type of thing, that's so important. So don't send your kid to school thinking it's just a whole day of recess, because it's not. They're actually doing some great learning, and they need your support.
Hmm. Powerful, just such a good perspective that, and it reminds me how easy it is in any capacity to take each other for granted. And
Yeah.
thanks for helping me remember that, and remember that I want to be appreciative instead of taking for granted. Last question. So in my work, I talk a lot about the power of doing our imperfect best, and what that means to me is we each get a chance to envision the best we want for our lives, the best we want to contribute to humanity. And then when problems come up, which they of course do, instead of saying, instead of being stopped by the problem and giving up, we learn from that and go once again towards the the best we envision. That's what I mean by what does doing your imperfect best mean to you, Douglas?
Well, I spent a lot of years striving for perfection.
Hmm.
And it took me a lot of years to realize there's no such thing as perfect. I think I was letting perfection be the enemy of good for a long time. And good is just that, it's good. It's good enough. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's good enough. And that's what a lot of times where I think in education, we want our kids to be, A students or great athletes. No, they can be a good student, and that's great. They can be a good athlete, and that's great. They don't have to be the best because by making them or trying to instill in them that they have to be the best, sometimes is the enemy of just letting them be good.
Hmm. Powerful, powerful. Thank you, my new friend, for First of all, it was so great to 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 meet you and your husband, and then too, and then thanks for saying yes to doing this.
No
It,
problem.
it takes a lot to be on a podcast, and thanks for just doing it, even though we've only met that one time.
Oh, I'm happy to do it. It was great doing it, Jason. I've watched your other episodes and great questions. I just was so tickled that you even thought of asking me.
Thank you. And last question, since who do you have on your lap?
This is Oliver, the most spoiled dog in all of America.
Oh, for the most spoiled dog in all of America. Well, have a great day, Douglas. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jason. Thank
Oh my gosh, I love doing this. I love these conversations. So in past weeks I've been encouraging you to have deeper conversations with your friends and in your family and the people you've known, but also like if you meet someone, happen to meet someone and they're interesting to you and you think you might have stuff in common, I encourage you to take the next step of inviting them to do something, inviting them to talk further, and ask them questions. And gosh, my world has so much expanded by being able to talk to Douglas for an hour. And and I could easily miss the opportunity, but so glad I didn't. So thanks for tuning into another awkwardly awesome podcast. Next week, next next week, oh yeah, next week, a dear, amazing friend who I haven't gotten to talk to for a long time, Chris Hendricks is on, and he has cerebral palsy like I do, and we're going to talk about power and being undervalued. I would say power and being undervalued and then just being extraordinary. Chris is an extraordinary musician and an extraordinary human. So until next week, remember you are the best and have an awesome week. And thanks again for tuning in. And now the outro.